Hello, and welcome to NPUK podcast number 18, part 1, where we kind of had a plan of, predicting what's going to be for the Switch 2, but Nintendo decided to throw a spanner in the works and have a direct on Thursday, the 27th of March, which was 6 days before the Switch 2 direct. So we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about the hardware and the software predictions for the Switch 2. I knew I was going to say it at some point. It's been 7 years since we had the Switch. But the Wii U was pretty good. Anyway, back on track. So, today we have Penny from Nintendo Basildon.
Hello.
And Leon from Nintendo Brighton.
Hello.
There he is. There they are. Anyway, so direct for the direct that was on Thursday the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
Victory lap for the Switch, I'd say. So some good bits and pieces, some bad bits and pieces. Well, I'll say bad bits and pieces. There's the virtual game cards, which I'm sure it won't be abused, but it's an interesting take on game sharing.
Yeah, I'm surprised Nintendo are doing it, but I'm glad. And it's I imagine it will work like family sharing on other platforms. That if you're named people, you can let them borrow it for a bit, and it's nice that they're going back to saying, you can lend things to your friends. It's a really nice thing.
Yeah, especially when
I also think it is probably a way for them to maybe start advertising the family plan more, because maybe for the Switch 2 they're wanting people to veer more to a group subscription rather than the individual one. So this is maybe seems to be a good way to promote that. Anyone in your family who has a Nintendo Switch and it's on your subscription, you can just lend them the game through local download for 14 days.
Like I was about to say, it seems like it's sort of like the first time a family subscription has been brought into play, because obviously there's the Nintendo Switch Online apps with like the NES games, SNES games, Game Boy, and so on and so forth. So yes, you're sharing those between your family. But yeah, it seems a step in the right direction that it's going to be actual full games that could be shared.
What it feels to me, it feels like Nintendo actually like admitting that they acknowledge how people play games and how people like use their games. Then they're saying basically, you own this game, you can lend it to your friends if you want. And that's a really nice thing to basically go when they're not going to be overly like strict about it. They're going to say, as long as you do it the way we do it appropriately and respectfully basically of our intellectual property, we will let you do this. And that's a surprise, and it's a good surprise. Remains to be seen exactly how it will work, but pleasant surprise.
Definitely. So, let's go to Leon next. What was your? Well, I know what it's going to be myself, but what was the highlight there, Leon?
Honestly, it was it was Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.
Yep.
Big fan. I was hoping maybe we'd have a date by now, but no, it's still really good to see another trailer for it, and it's eventually coming. I still don't know if they might possibly do a Switch 2 enhanced version, or if it's just going to be like a Switch release. It makes sense because Metroid Prime 4 was one of the first games announced for Nintendo Switch, if I remember, or at least it was announced quite early on.
Yeah.
So would obviously be a lot of quite a few fans which would get a Nintendo Switch in the hopes to get Metroid Prime 4. And if there's sort of a dual release between Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2, then players might seem that they've missed out. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it does seem like the way that modern gaming is going, like with other platforms, you can download one version, say for the next gen console, but there will still be a previous gen console download to go with it as well. So hopefully,
I think though they did say that this direct, the Thursday one, was for Switch, and that Switch 2 is the next direct. So that implies to me that these are games that are for the Switch one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there were a few games which did have a little asterisk saying Switch 2 enhanced. So possibly they nudged a few, like, what's the word? Well, let's just say speculation that they are basically upscaling games for the Switch 2. But yeah, Thursday, it was about the Switch 1. What was your highlight there, Penny?
Well, anyone who knows me knows that there are 4 games that I rant about every direct and not being there. One was Fantasy Life, and we got a date for that. One's Dragon Quest Builders 3, still nothing. But the other 2 are Rhythm Paradise and Tomodachi Life, and to get both of them in one direct was my prayers are answered. I mean, they actually referenced it in the direct that these are games that haven't been, they've not had a version for 10 years. Tomodachi Life and Rhythm Paradise have not had a Switch release. I mean, we've had umpteen Zeldas and Metroids and, you know, this, that and the other. But, okay, they're niche games, but they've got a following. I'm part of that following. Rhythm Paradise or Rhythm Heaven. I don't know if they were calling it Rhythm Heaven all the way through, so I don't know if they're maybe going to that being the worldwide name instead of having Rhythm Heaven in some places and Rhythm Paradise in the other. But anyway, it's a great game for meets. It's a great game for playing with friends. I'm just really pleased to see it. And Tomodachi Life is just bonkers. I'm really pleased to have that back as well.
One thing I do find interesting with Rhythm Paradise is it says its release date is 2026.
Yeah.
And like you said, this direct was more emphasized on games which are specifically for Nintendo Switch or Nintendo Switch 1, as we'll soon be referring to it. But this shows that they will be supporting the Switch somewhat still into the beginning years of the Switch 2 life cycle, which I think is pretty nice.
I would imagine that it'd be like a crossover, that if a game, you know, like an indie developer, if they make a game that works on Switch 1 and 2, then release it for Switch 1 and 2, or, you know, Switch 2 but backwards compatible, you can still play it on a Switch 1. But there'll be I mean, it was the same with the DS and the 3DS, if I remember rightly. There were games that you could play on a DS, but there were ones where it said, no, you have to have a 3DS for this. But you could still play the DS games on the 3DS, and it's going to be like that, I think.
Thinking about it,
I'm assuming the new Switch will have the same carts then, but...
Yeah. It may be a case like it has a little notch on the side, sort of like going from DS games to 3DS games. But if you think about it, going way back to the Super Game Boy, basically some Super Game Boy cartridges, namely Donkey Kong 94, that had like enhanced, basically colours for Donkey Kong 94. That if you put it on a Super Game Boy and put it in, obviously in your SNES, it would be slightly enhanced there. I think.
Wasn't there? Sorry, which console was it where it had like the big cart slot on one side? Was it the Game Boy Advance and then the little one on the other side?
So. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like,
Because
yeah,
there's a
we've got
guitar-
holes for both games, basically.
Yeah.
And then there was a Guitar Hero peripheral that you could just plug into the bottom of the.
Yeah.
Was that on the Game Boy Advance?
That was
I
the
think so.
DS.
Oh, DS. That's the one.
Yeah.
I
missed
remember the
DS.
one you had. It was a like a weird sort of 4-button hand holding thing that was crippling to use, if I remember
Yes.
right. But yeah. Oh yeah, and all talking about Guitar Hero and that direct Rift of the Necrodancer looked fun.
Yep.
Looking forward to that. It's supposed to be out. Well, actually, let's say it is out. It's out now because it came out on the day of the direct. So
yeah. There seem to be a lot of Riven games this time around. We had Pass Upon 1 and 2, which I'm very surprised is there.
yeah, Sony.
Yeah.
Wow.
What else? Obviously, Riven Paradise or Riven. I've forgotten the international name already.
Yeah, Rhythm Heaven.
Riven Heaven, that's it.
Rhythm Heaven Groove.
Yes. There was
Rift of the Necrodancer.
Yeah.
Um.
Just trying to think.
Oh gosh.
There was
Yeah,
another
Patapon.
But yeah.
Not that I remember. There was a lot of weird stuff. There was that Metroidvania Pac-Man game, which looked really quite mad.
I was not that drugs are my thing, but that does seem like something that someone would have imagined back in the 1980s. But obviously, that the technology wasn't there, but you could actually see a real, as it were, Pac-Man. But yeah, that is a bit of a fever dream right there.
Yeah, that was good fun. Witchbrook looks good. I mean, I love what Chucklefish do. So I knew about Witchbrook before, so I'm just really nice to see it actually being played. New Gradius, another Story of Seasons, but the thing is, I like Story of Seasons, but it looked exactly the same as all the other ones. So it's like, if you like that kind of thing, then great. But
I'm all for cozy games, but yeah, there does need to be a bit of variety there.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited for Tomodachi Life, because it's cozy but also, like I said, bonkers. So, in my previous Tomodachi Life, I think my mum was hanging out with a Barack Obama. It was very fun.
Yes.
Strange. What else was in it?
One thing that really surprised me, Everybody's Golf Hot Shots. I know.
Yeah, that looked like a bit of a Mario Golf clone, though. It's like, you've got Mario Golf. What do you need? What do you need another one for?
Well, Everybody's Golf is a big PlayStation game, and it just seems a bit of a shock that. Well, I know Clap Hands left Sony quite a while ago, but yeah, it just seems a bit weird that it's come to Nintendo, and yeah, it just looks just as fun as it does for any other like previous iterations of the series.
Patapon's Sony as well. What was the Sony one? Like Loco Roco? Is
Yes.
it Loco Roco am I thinking of? That would be lovely on a Switch. I'd love to see that. But
the way things are going at the moment, anything is possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the old like when we first saw like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, and those of us who are old enough to remember the console wars. It's a piece in our time, basically.
Definitely. Right, so I think we've talked about last Thursday's Direct enough. Moving on to the next Direct, the Switch 2. So, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of rumours swirling around, and I think the latest one I've seen is the inclusion of a button that has the letter C on it, but we'll come to that later. So,
wait and see, haha, bum bum.
yes. So, let's go with Penny. And can you think of any predictions hardware-wise for the Switch 2?
Hardware was I was thinking about this earlier, and the Switch fills such a good niche. I think what most people want is like a Switch but better. More power, more better frame rates, less jank when it's trying to play bigger games, so that they can port more AAA games, more the latest thing. I'm not super keen on frame rate. I know I like a good frame rate, but that's not what a Switch is for. A Switch is the one you take on holiday and you're playing, in the hotel room, or you Christmas at your mum's and you play with your nieces and nephews, that sort of thing. So it doesn't have to be super powerful, but sometimes you'll be there going, I really wish I could play XYZ on the go. So they needed to be upgrading it so that more modern games were possible to play on it. But I think it needs more than that. I mean, the way the Joy-Cons join seems to have been improved, because we've all got the little slidey bits jammed on and we put them on upside down, haven't we? so that looks good. There's obviously the scope for but then every time I think about it, I think, yeah, but the Switch 1 does that. The Switch is a great console, just needs beefing up. So that's my main prediction is more under the bonnet, more power, better battery life. They obviously can't go mad with it because it needs to have a honking great fan in it, like a gaming PC. But maybe something in the dock that would act like a external GPU a little bit, just give it a little bit more, like you say, upscaling for when you've got it plugged into the TV, get more power out of it. But yeah, I think just generally what I want to see and what I'm sure will be updated innards, so that it can cope with more, that it can deliver more. So,
Leon?
Yes. Predictions wise for the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, so the one thing that does intrigue me is the sensor on the Joy-Con, the new sensor. So and the way they were alluding in the trailer, there's obviously going to be some sort of mouse function. But I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued by that. What sort of implementation could this have in future games for the Nintendo Switch 2? But I'm also thinking, is there another feature they've been working on which they've been keeping really quiet? Because obviously recently there's been lots of, I'm going to say leaks, but air quoting, because obviously we don't know what's true until Nintendo has confirmed that it is true, and they've not really done a lot of confirmations. They've done the trailer, and that's everything that we have to go on from an official standpoint. But maybe, actually I was thinking about the last Direct with the virtual game cards.
Oh yeah.
And this might be a bit of a left field sort of prediction, or just sort of a pipe dream. I really want the return of download play from DS. Because that was just something else. Like, if you want... So back when I had a DS, I was still in, I think, secondary school. And there'd be a bunch of kids in the playground who also have a DS. And say we wanted to play Mario Kart, but only one of us has Mario Kart, you can just send it to all your mates, and they basically have a demo version of the Mario Kart multiplayer, which I absolutely loved. And it just, I don't know, it sort of brings that value back into the console a bit more, because obviously you can't, back as a kid, you can't really afford, well, even as an adult now as well, you can't really afford to get every single new release as it comes out. So having that download play meant that you could show it off to your friend, they can experience it for themselves, like a little demo, and then when they save up their pennies for it, they can go get the full game later on. But I don't think that will happen, but it would be a nice thing if they brought it back. I don't know, it's just something about the virtual game cards using the local communication to transfer, to lend over a game. It reminds me of that a bit. Maybe it's just like another iteration of it, so to speak.
Yeah, I remember, like, well, going to various Street Pass meets, like we still had DS games to play, And yeah, it was always either Bomberman or Mario Kart.
Yeah, Bomberman DS. We've played a lot of that.
It was just such a good like feature to just like one person having the game, but everyone can join in.
You all huddle together like a rugby scrum, so you get close enough that you can all play together. I mean, that's another thing. Like Street Pass.
Yes.
Can we get Street Pass back?
That would be nice. That would be very nice indeed. I've got a little prediction as well, which sort of connects Street Pass and various other, let's just say, experimental social media bits and pieces. The new Joy-Cons, and I've seen like various different news websites saying, "Oh, there's a new button on the Joy-Con that's got the letter C on it." So that C, and I'm just being a bit bold here, could mean community. So there was a little yeah. With the Wii U, there was this thing called Miiverse. So it would be great if we could have like a Miiverse community come back. And I mean, like, it was great when some people got their pictures posted by Nintendo themselves. I know someone had to do a double take one day who saw their picture on Miiverse, and it was like a recommended picture by Nintendo. Penny knows who I'm talking about.
I do, and another Nintendo Basildon found it. It was the Street Pass bunny, wasn't it? The sort of the gacha bunny.
Oh, that's another prediction for the Badge Arcade.
Yeah, Badge Arcade, that was it.
Wouldn't it be great if that came back as well?
Yeah, more like customizable sort of desktop, for want of a better word.
Well,
that would be nice.
Well, with the Switch 2, as Liam pointed out earlier, having a mouse sensor, it's going to be a little PC. So why not make it so it is like a little desktop and have features like that?
When that got mentioned, I suddenly remembered another game that I'm very excited for, which is Akami 2, and some sort of mouse or Wii U style sensor will be very good for games like that where you need to draw, because there's a few games on the Switch that are better done with touch because you need to draw basically. So you can't really play them docked with the TV because it's just not convenient. Whereas if you had a Joy-Con that you could use like a mouse, that would make playing those sorts of games docked with the TV much easier. So that would be nice. Especially, I mean, we've had Bluetooth keyboards before. Do you remember Pokemon Typing? I can't remember what it's called, but it was basically Pokemon Typing Tutor, with a keyboard that basically Bluetoothed to your DS or 3DS or whatever it was. So yeah, we've had keyboards before. So yeah, maybe keyboard and mouse Switch. Yeah, you turn your Switch into a little. Yeah, it's not going to be like a Windows machine, but they've done they've done some weird little. They had like a little word processor, didn't they? Today?
I don't think it's a word processor, but I know there's on the eShop there is like various applications to word. Like there's a note-taking app. There's a calculator,
and,
clocks.
I mean, I think even going far back, there's was it Learning Typing with Mario or something like that?
Oh, Mario Teaches Typing.
Yeah.
That's it, Mario Teaches Typing.
Yes.
So they've not been completely shy from those sort of peripherals. But I was also thinking the mouse function, assuming it is a mouse function, that would probably be useful in Splatoon. Whatever the next Splatoon would be.
I mean, motion controls are great, but if you do it like mouse and keyboard, of which I know it sort of goes against Nintendo's way of doing things, that people have found ways of doing Splatoon with a mouse and keyboard, and it works out great. So very, very much possible.
I still can't believe they did the one of the control methods from the first one was a single Wii remote, and you just wrapped the Pro controller in the Wii remote jacket.
Yes.
Wii remote, I think it was.
Yes. That was an official method.
Yes.
They stuck by it, but it didn't quite take off, but they did perfect it.
I mean, that's using ingenuity, I suppose. Like, very MacGyver. Like, just see some bits around the house and then put it together. Voila, new controller.
When in doubt, just take your shoelaces off and use them.
But the old cardboard Joy-Cons.
Oh yes, that's an idea. Switch to Labo.
Yeah.
Will they bring that back?
Be compatible, will it?
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't compatible with Switch 2, so why not bring it over like a new version of it?
Actually, that brings me on to something that we could talk about perhaps is launch titles. What do you think a launch title is going to be?
Well, we kind of know from the Direct on the Thursday that there are a few titles that are announced for late 2025 and 2026. Obviously, most likely Metroid Prime 4 could be the marquee launch title.
I wonder though if they're keeping something big close to their chest at this point.
Yeah,
because it was Zelda, it was Breath of the Wild, wasn't it? And Splatoon. So maybe a new Splatoon, maybe a new Super Mario Maker or something like that. Another Mario Kart. We haven't had a Mario Kart for a long time.
Well, it was in the first trailer with the ominous 24 grid places.
I suppose that could be a good launch title because gets you playing with other people.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe I know Mario Kart was shown off recently, but I feel maybe that's more of a launch window title. Maybe it's just because I'm thinking back to the original Switch release where it launched during the summer, I think, after
it was
the Switch released.
Yeah, I can't. It was about. Can't remember exactly, but I think it was.
It wasn't too far off the launch. I know that.
Because there was the game that sort of featured all like the motion controls and all that sort of stuff. I can't remember the name of it now.
1-2 Switch.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because there'll probably be something like that will feature if there's any new functionality there'll be a game that features that. Because Nintendo like to do that. They like to basically show things off by giving you something you can play to work it out.
I wonder if like everybody's 1-2 Switch was sort of like a testing the waters of what could come to the Switch 2, because
sort of like Jackbox style mobile phone functionality.
Like trying to see like not so much who the game is for, but if they can Switch 2ify it somehow.
Or at least, have use if everyone's, because these days computer console manufacturers have this weird situation that you wouldn't have thought of like 10-20 years ago, where everyone's got a little computer in their pocket that can connect to other little computers and can do things, and it's got motion sensors in, and it's got camera in it, and it's got all this stuff, so they can use that to make new games. I remember way back in the day, I have to cut this out because I'm going to talk Sony, but Black Flag, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, you could have the maps on your phone, so it would connect to like an app. So you could be playing the game and then looking at the maps on your phone as like a like the Wii U's second sort of screen. Yeah. So there's all that sort of stuff you can do.
Well, the Animal Crossing New Horizons sort of had that with on the Nintendo app.
QR code reader, yeah.
No, well, on the Nintendo Online app, Like you can use that as a keyboard and chat to everyone in game.
Well, yeah,
So they got the knowledge.
well, also, I mean, going back to Tomodachi Life, remember that with the 3DS, you made the Mii, and you could download. So people made like famous people, and you could get a QR code, like you did like with Animal Crossing for the clothes, to get that Mii. So I wonder if it's going to have a camera.
Possibly.
You know, or like a QR code reader, something like that.
Well, the original Switch has the infrared camera, so
Yeah, exactly.
they might have that sort of lined up already. So,
Although, like I said, with Animal Crossing New Horizons, if you were getting QR codes for clothing, you got it on your phone, and then it basically squirted it to the Switch in some way. I can't remember exactly. It's been a while. It was an app for it, I think.
yeah.
So there's lots of things they could do. And seeing a Tomodachi Life announcement made me think, I wonder how they're going to, because it looked much more 3D. It looked much more like I say, Animal Crossing, but with Mii's. So there has to be ways that you can edit Mii's in it. So Mii's are going to be more of a thing. I mean, they're still a thing in the Switch one, but not as much as they were in the 3DS.
No.
I don't want to phase them out, to be completely honest, because in Nintendo Switch Sports they didn't use Mii's. It used what were they called in Switch Sports?
Avatar? Not avatars.
Avatars that you made.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sort of like in Go Outdoors, where you never really, people didn't really use the Mii's because the Mii's couldn't wear the hats.
Oh.
So you had the avatars in game that you made. They were more sort of generic, I suppose. But
Although the avatars in Switch Sports were based on Mii's, sort of like updated, so possibly they might bring them back for that and sort of downscale it for Tomodachi Life.
I suppose, I mean, Tomodachi Life can just keep the old school Mii's because that's what you expect from a Tomodachi Life game. So doesn't mean that the rest of the console will use them.
Yeah, that's true. Thinking about it, Switch Online, I mean, we've still got the NES, N64, Game Boy, and Mega Drive games. How about some GameCube games? Because, you know, storage sizes are a bit bigger these days, and I'm not predicting that the Switch 2 will have like 128 gigabytes of space or 256, but yeah, it definitely have the space for like GameCube games because of all storage there.
Well, yeah, I mean
even then, you've got expandable storage through micro SD cards.
Yes.
Like on the Switch, you can do up to 2 terabytes at the moment, I think.
Yep.
yeah, you can get some honking great games on there already. I mean, I don't know how much space a GameCube disc would hold, but it can't be as much as a modern game.
It's 1.8 gigabytes. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's not. I mean, that's quite small for a modern game, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Compared to
I mean, Nintendo are kings of compression.
yes.
Like some of the biggest Nintendo Switch games, they're less than 20 gigabytes, whereas you've got Call of Duty, which is half a terabyte.
That's because
Obviously, it's completely different games, but
but a lot of it is because PCs, they know they've got the space, so they can afford to just leave it bloated. They don't have to tighten it up. So, and I wonder. I mean, I'm assuming that the Switch 2 is going to have a bigger cart, or not bigger as in physically bigger, but bigger as in more capacity.
Yeah.
Because it's going to need it.
I remember when the original Switch came out. Like, I think the biggest size for a long time was 32 gigabytes, and
But it's basically
yeah.
It's basically a micro SD card in a little case, though, isn't it? It's not. It's nothing terribly exciting.
No.
So you must be. I mean, you can get like you were saying earlier. I mean, you can get like 2 terabyte micro SD cards now.
They're a bit pricey, but yeah, they're worth it.
They're pricey, but yeah, but that's the thing. But for a AAA game that is, but if it's a AAA game you're selling at like 60, 70 pounds, then it's not out of the question. And a lot of these games, it's not quite cloud gaming, but you still expect a big old download.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it will take a while.
Put it in.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, thinking about it, like obviously Super Mario Sunshine. There is a Switch version of that, but that was a bit limited edition, and I don't know how many copies it actually sold, but people who wanted it went for it straight away. But yes, stuff like I was about to say the first 2 Pikmin games, but they're on Switch already. Double Dash. Who wouldn't want to Double Dash on the go with possibility of actually having 16 players all lined up?
I said earlier,
that's a lot of time on Double Dash as a kid. Yeah, I got it for Christmas one year actually.
Like I said earlier, that's what Nintendo do well. Couch co-op, holidays with friends. You're away from home. You may or may not even have Wi-Fi, because that's a lot of the other sort of portable solutions assume that you've still got Wi-Fi. Sometimes you don't. So yeah, it's there's a market there for a lot of old games that, well, in fact, not even old games, current games that the Switch just isn't beefy enough to do. That Switch 2, we might be seeing some really interesting ports. And remakes and remasters that will be really, really cool.
I'm just going to throw it out there. That from what I can remember, on the original Switch 2 trailer, there was a USB-C port on top of the console. I'm just thinking, there's been several people that have mentioned this, a possibility of having an extra monitor on top to make it a dual screen system, so that could also bring DS games to the Nintendo Switch Online app as well.
It's an interesting idea, but the problem I have with that is that if you're saying, right, you want to play this double screen game, you need to buy the extra screen peripheral.
Yeah.
Some people will do that, but some people will go, I don't want to buy an extra screen. What I'd be more thinking it might be is that you can have like an external monitor to play like bigger games. I mean, you can do that already. You can get like a portable monitor and plug it straight into the bottom, and some of them don't need a dock. You just do it, but obviously it has to be powered then. And so I wonder if it's like a pass-through, so that you can have power going in one hole and going, so you don't need a dock. Basically, if you're out and about, you can just plug it straight into something that has a USB-C input.
Let me think of something. What if you'll be able to use external hard drives for the Nintendo Switch, because then if you don't have to worry too much about when you undock it to re-plug it back in, even though the Switch doesn't have support for external drive at the moment. But maybe that, actually I don't know, maybe it just, sorry, that's me just spitballing off another idea.
It would be nice, because I mean, I got so many screenshots. Every now and then I have to clear them off because there's like a maximum.
Oh yeah.
And videos and things like that. So it would be nice if you could just plug an an external drive in, and just it treats it as a flash drive, and you can just move things around. That would be nice.
Well, the Wii U had the feature of having a external hard drive, but the thing is with the Wii U, is very, or the USB port at least, was very underpowered, so it could only run certain hard drives, which, well, you needed an AC adapter for the hard drive itself to actually run. But with the way technology is now and how power is managed by a USB-C port,
I mean,
why not?
I mean, that's the thing, because you get like USB 4 where you can have like power draws of like 100 watts or something.
Yeah.
So you can you easily enough power to sort of dock it. And also something else that I thought of that I would like the Switch to have, which I only learned about recently because I bought a portable PC that had them, is Hall effect joysticks. Are you familiar with this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think it's something like electromagnetic thing rather than the way the Switch does it. But obviously it gets rid of Joy-Con drift, so that would be nice. But it's it's just like a different way of sensing where a joystick is.
Yes.
So that's another, like I said earlier, there's lots of things they could do to just tweak the hardware a bit, a little bit more power, a little bit more reliability. But yeah, USB 4. I don't know what standard I mean, we're getting really nerdy now, but I don't know what standard this Switch 1 has. It's USB-C, but I don't know how much power draw it is. But
it was 3.0 USB for the 3.0 speeds, I'd say.
Yeah.
For the Switch originally. So yeah, I can see. Well, the Switch is 7 years old, and the world has moved on. I say moved on, has progressed with like power management and the way data is transferred. Yeah. So yeah, it is exciting. Like this, even just by the USB port, what they can do with the Switch 2. So.
But yeah, it is interesting that there is one on the bottom and one on the top. There must be a reason for that, and it's interesting to muse on what it might be. I do think it probably is some kind of peripheral. It might be something like a camera, like a little webcam that you stick in the top of
Game Boy camera for.
Yeah, exactly, or the little printer. I don't think they're going to be like
the same image quality.
Yes.
Yeah, the heat paper. But yeah, you could have like a plug-in, like a little plug-in webcam sort of thing.
But it's also nice.
Sensor,
It would be nice if both do take our inputs as well.
Yes.
Because then, depending on where you're sitting or how you're holding the Switch, you can just change which side to plug in your charger. I know I think there's some people talking. Maybe you can. The reason why the Joy-Cons are magnetic are so that you can put them in any orientation on the Nintendo Switch or whatever use that may have, or if you just want to switch things up a bit.
Left-handed, you mean? Well, there's things like, I mean, something that's just struck my mind is things like, special effect and like the Microsoft special joysticks for people with, different needs. So that might be something you could do with another USB-C, is plug in some very specific. I mean, a HOTAS would be interesting, wouldn't it? If you could plug a HOTAS in.
I was about to say, you better explain what the HOTAS is, because I know what it is. But
it's I think it stands for hands-on throttle and stick. So for those of us nerds that play things like Elite Dangerous and Microsoft Flight Simulator and anything that involves flying, you have the sort of joystick and then a throttle next to it for the speed and buttons all over it.
I'm looking at mine right now. Actually.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, I mean, there's a lot of games that I play that aren't possible on the Switch. Like I say, like Elite Dangerous. I've been playing Elite since the 80s. I love that game. Can't play it on the Switch. It would be really nice if I could. It's unlikely because they already have it on consoles and they only have the legacy version. But as an idea of that, it means that you would be able to plug in more specialist peripherals and have it charged and docked. I mean, that's the thing, is at the moment, if you want to, say, plug in something strange and you've got it docked, you have to plug it into USB-A sockets in the side of the dock. But if you want USB-C, like say, you know, high power, high data, it would have to go in a USB-C socket, which you can't do docked at the moment, because the only USB-C socket is the one that powers it, that's on the bottom. Whereas if there's one on the top as well, you would potentially be able to plug more specialist and high drain and high power peripherals into the top.
Yeah.
While it was docked in the dock as well.
So like having a steering wheel for racing games as well. That could also work.
Yeah, it'd be whatever. And that's one of the great things about USB and Bluetooth is it can be, you know, whatever you want to stick in it, you can stick something in it. And so it just needs the software to cope with it, I guess. Yeah.
Just had a thought whilst you were mentioning the HOTAS and Flight Simulator. What if, because basically the whole console gaming landscape is, let's just say, not as it was back in the 1990s.
I know what you're going to say. You're going to say Game Pass.
Game Pass on Switch.
Game Pass on Switch. Well, I understand that there's a plan for the next. There's rumours that there's going to be another Microsoft handheld or Xbox handheld, and it's going to have Game Pass on it. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to have Steam on it. I mean,
yes.
So you're going to be able to play Steam on basically an Xbox, which means you'll be able to play Sony games on the Xbox, which is going to be weird. But like you say, the times they are changing. But yeah, I mean, imagine that, a Switch where you could basically put Game Pass on it or Steam. I don't think that would happen. But I think it's likely maybe that Nintendo would do something like Game Pass. They already do a little bit with their retro games.
Yeah.
But it's possible that they would go, okay, you pay us a subscription and you will get all these indie games as part of that subscription. So that might be possible. That might happen. I don't know if Nintendo necessarily... I mean, there's always a big disconnect in Nintendo with first-party stuff and third-party stuff. They're very tight. They keep very tight hold of their own IPs, and they're a bit more sort of loosey-goosey with indie games and what everyone else is getting up to. So I could see them having like a featured games like subscription, but maybe not. I don't know. I think that's just something we'd like, maybe. Especially in this day and age when people haven't got money for like a £60 game.
Yeah.
They might have money for like a £10 a month subscription. And I think a lot of the game companies are realising if you can get £10 a month out of people, then that's probably going to make the difference between, you know, having money coming in and having none. Because if people go, I can't afford a £60 game, then you've got nothing.
Yeah, would be nice if they followed the trend of like Xbox Live and the Game Pass and PlayStation Plus having basically not necessarily the newest games, but as you mentioned, it's getting £10 a month out of everyone rather than having everyone splash on £60 worth of games all in one go, and they're just stuck with that game.
I mean that. They've kind of already got the infrastructure for it, because there's already the retro games on online.
Yes.
And this virtual cart as well. The fact that you can basically kind of virtually send a game from one console to another one. It sort of implies the possibility that you could at least, you know, download a game for a bit and then 2 weeks later it's not yours anymore. So maybe there'll be, I know, sort of waiting. I can't remember what it is where you can try a game for like a weekend, and then a lot of the MMOs do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trials.
Yeah, so maybe something like that. But
Yeah, well, it's something that Nintendo has got in place already, so why not enhance it and let everyone play a bit more, well, a few more games.
yeah, they don't necessarily need a new console for that though. So I do think there's something big about the new, because they could have just done a Switch one, like the OLED, like here's a Switch with like a better processor, or here's a Switch with a bigger battery or something like that. The fact that they've actually gone, this is a Switch 2, makes me think there's something significant, and more significant than magnetic attachments for Joy-Cons. I don't know what it is yet. But...
That's one thing I do love about Nintendo. They do have a habit to just surprise. And I swear, so many of the sort of special features like motion controls, even the hybrid console concept, probably at the time it was announced, was thought, oh, that's just a gimmick. But then once it came out, it sort of actually set a standard. So with the Switch, there's been so many different sort of similar looking consoles, not quite the same thing, because they're more of a PC console sort of deal, but still like adding more portability to your favorite games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think there would have been a Steam Deck if it wasn't for a Switch. I don't think Steam would have done it. They wouldn't have gone. Oh, people want to be able to play games on the bus.
Yeah,
but
people like to leave the house. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically Nintendo said that people want this. People want to be able to do this. And there are. I mean, I've got a GPD, which is a weird little thing. But it's like a miniature laptop, because I play a lot of games that need keyboards, like, Elite and Crusader Kings. But there is this feeling that they're miniaturizing game consoles, and I think it's because Nintendo went, let's take a punt, let's have a go and see if anyone buys this. And Nintendo, like you say, have a knack of knowing what seems like a wacky idea, but that the users are actually going to want. Before we even know, they go, hey, you want this? And we go, really? And then we buy one and we go, yay, this is awesome.
Well, when you think about it, the whole Game & Watch series was because someone, Gunpei Yokoi, saw someone playing with a calculator on a train. So they thought, we can make games out of that. So the Game & Watch series was born. And then Nintendo thought, if people like playing that sort of thing, why not bring out a Game Boy? And basically change the cartridges and play it from there. And then as technology rolled on, you could have like a SNES-powered console in your pocket in the form of a Game Boy Advance. And then the DS come around. And yeah, it's just progression, and I'm all here for it. So
yeah, you could argue as well that Nintendo did the first VR headset. Yeah. And it didn't do very well because it was basically too early. Its time had not come. But they did it. I wonder if that's another thing that. Yeah. I wonder if that might be something that could go in that USB socket on the top.
Possibly. I mean,
they did have VR, Labo VR.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But like a receiver for a VR headset, or I mean, not one for like running around, but just maybe like a little headset that you put on while you're sitting down, just for like a VR or an AR even. I mean, I get horribly motion sick, so I'm not going to be doing that. But the idea that you could have, a plug-in, if sitting on the bus, but you can just put your headset on and just be somewhere else. That'd be quite nice. I can't remember. Any of the other, because the teaser was very much a teaser. And I'm sure many people have picked it to bits, but to the point of looking at little buttons.
Yeah.
Let's see. If there's anything else.
not necessarily worry me, but just a bit of a interesting design choice is the on where the new Joy-Cons slot in. There is a little plug thing in the middle of the divot on the console. Just from looking at it, it does look a bit, maybe not fiddly, but fragile. That if you bend something in a certain way, it might break. That's just something that sort of I've got at the back of my head. But who knows? Maybe when it comes out, it'll actually be quite durable.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure that Nintendo have thought this through, and we've seen in the past that, well, there's a Game Boy in a museum somewhere where it's been, well, literally blown up.
Yeah, it bombed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or it wasn't it a
Gulf
something
War.
like that? No, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a soldier's one, but it was still playable apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I mean, the thing that gets me is like the magnetic attachments for the Joy-Cons is how well do they stick? And if they stick well, are they going to stick to everything else when you take them off? That's something that's kind of bothering me.
Yeah.
It's like it's a nice sturdy attachment sliding on. I mean, it's like I say, it's a faff, but it's sturdy. But you don't want to be halfway through playing a game and you sort of get all excited and then you end up breaking the Joy-Cons off it and dropping the middle bit on the floor.
Yeah.
But like you say, they will have thought of that. They will have play tested this. Nintendo do not release something until it's ready. So
Brilliant idea. What if you can put the Joy-Cons on your fridge for storage?
yeah.
Why not?
Sorry, little thought running along there.
In my head, I'm imagining a WarioWare game that does exactly that, where you stick it to a fridge and you actually pull the fridge open and it captures the motion of it. So
Yes, there are. I mean, there's some of the hobbies that I do use some particularly strong magnets, and if you get them stuck to each other where you don't want them stuck to each other, it's an absolute nightmare trying to get them off. So I would imagine that it's magnetic, but with maybe some little clasp or catch or something that stops them from coming off when you don't want them to.
Yeah, something safety-wise, because who knows what magnets might collect or
I was just
stick
thinking
to.
about at work sometimes when I'm detagging the wine, the tag will just sort of not explode, but the magnet will just rip through the casing of the tag into the detagger, and then alright, it's time to try and get this out without it pinching my fingers.
Absolutely. I mean,
so safety paramount.
The screen's a little bigger, isn't it? Is the whole thing a little bigger?
I believe it's yes.
So
Yes.
it looks like there's less of a bezel between the screen and the outside, although
That's kind of what the OLED.
OLED.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look like it says, or I mean, the Switch 2 bezel seems a bit bigger than the OLED, but less bigger than the Switch original model.
Yeah, I never got an OLED because I have the Nintendo, the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch, which is, 5 years old now, but it will live in my heart forever. And I love the OLED. I love the kickstand. I love the fancy screen. I just didn't love it enough to buy another Switch. But the Switch 2 I'm assuming it's going to have a similar sort of screen to the other handhelds on the market at the moment. In that it will be a nice OLED screen.
I was looking on our social media, and someone was saying about the handheld screen. They're wanting it to be 1080p because at the moment the handheld screen, even like OLED, is 720, I believe.
Yeah, it is.
Is that right? But yeah, I think that could be very possible to be announced in the Direct, and it would be nice as well to have that extra bit of clarity on the handheld screen. Though to be fair, like even the OLED isn't 1080, it's 720. It still looks gorgeous. It's the colours are so crisp on it. Like looking, I did a side-by-side comparison when it first came out, and it just looks so much nicer.
I do think a lot of the current generation of handheld PCs have like 10-inch or 9-inch, 10-inch, 1080p screens, so it's definitely something you can do. I suppose it depends on, I mean, they probably all get them from the same factory in Shenzhen, to be honest. so it's not going to be a problem. But obviously Nintendo will be able to order this in absolute bulk. One of the things talking earlier about how Nintendo get this sort of thing right, they do not do that false scarcity that a lot of other console manufacturers do. They make sure they've got enough. So, I mean, they might be scarce, but they're not super scarce. You can still get hold of one, and you don't have to pay a scalper for it. So,
I do think it's interesting because I think recently, I think the CEO of Nintendo, I can't remember if it was him or someone else, but they made a statement saying that they are going to take into considerations about people scalping, try and put in ways to essentially make it so everyone who wants one will be able to get one without having to pay ridiculous prices. I can't remember who, like, I'm not imagining that, am I? Or does anyone else remember?
I've heard it as well. Like they've made enough to keep up with demand. I'm not saying that they've delayed the Switch 2 by any means, but it does seem as if they have taken their time to make enough for everyone to get one on day one.
My prediction for that would, because Nintendo like to do a direct and say it's available now. I'm not saying the Switch 2 is available now, but they say, oh, you can download this game, you can pre-order it now. I think when they do the Switch 2 announcement, they will say, and you can pre-order one now. You can register to buy one now from Nintendo. And then they will be able to gauge how many they need to make. And then it will be, 4, 5, 6 months' time, whenever they're out, they will basically go, this is how many we need. Do we know anyone that's actually managed to get onto the hands-on events? Because I don't.
We know someone that's... I think it's someone in the Nintendo South End has said, I've got a ticket, and I wasn't too happy about it, but it wasn't me, so it's let me. But yeah, it would be...
But that basically means they're ready.
Yeah.
I mean, they've at least got versions that are, production models that are ready to be, put out there and tested by people. So they're a long way down the line.
I honestly think it's going to be very, very similar to the Switch 1, where their whole plan so they'll go through the initial announcement, a couple months later they do the big detailed direct, which is on the 2nd, and then they're going to release the console maybe a few months after that.
Yeah, I think it's about 3 or 4 months for the Switch 1, because a lot of us went to the launch that. And I remember Dave from Nintendo Basildon getting very ill on the train on the way and having to turn back. We were heartbroken for the poor guy. But yeah, no, that was... So I remember going to that.
Yeah, at the Hammersmith Apollo.
It was, yes. But, yeah.
I'm curious if maybe they'll have, when they do the pre-orders, if it will be exclusive to my Nintendo users for a brief period of time, because they did that with Nintendo Alamo.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of wondering, maybe they were doing that with Nintendo Alamo to sort of gauge how it would work in reality, and then maybe they'll do something similar for the Nintendo Switch 2.
It makes sense because they've got you've got a whole group of people where you've kind of, you know them, you know their details, you know that they are real people basically that are fans of your product.
Yeah.
And then you can partly give them a little bit of a, jump the queue a little bit, but also it means that you can be sure that that person is going to basically buy it and not sell it on, because you could say they're one per person basically. You can buy more in the shops later, but if you want one on launch day, tell us here and we'll send you one. Hopeful.
Yeah, going back to the Alamo, saying it's exclusively to my Nintendo obviously subscribers, because I suppose they are Nintendo Online subscription holders. I can recall, and not that I'm humble bragging here, but when I went out to Tokyo, I wanted to get the Famicom Joy-Cons, well, not Joy-Cons, but Famicom controllers, and they are exclusive for the Nintendo Switch Online subscribers. And I had to basically take out my phone and prove to them I am a subscriber, and they've handed me the Joy-Cons. So
I think it's probably a good way of basically stopping scalpers. Yeah, I would think.
So
maybe they'll implement the warp pipe pass feature that they have on, because that isn't that a is it how you can book when there's a limited capacity event in the New York store or something like that?
Yes.
Like a fast pass sort of thing.
Yeah, like a fast pass. So maybe that could be something that you can use in retailers as well.
Well,
maybe they can scan the code and be like, yeah, you're eligible to pre-order.
Well, I mean, the elephant in the room we have, especially in my town, is that we don't really have any game console retailers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because games basically a shelf of Prime and Pokemon plushies at the back of Sports Direct now, and I'm sure that goes for a lot of places. HMV doesn't really sell consoles anymore. They sell games, but they don't sell consoles. Argos doesn't really exist in Basildon anymore. I think there's one in a Sainsbury's somewhere, and there's CEX. That's it, and they only do second-hand stuff. So I think a lot of people are going to buy a Switch directly from Nintendo because they won't really have a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, the Sony have done that quite a lot recently with the PSVR 2 and I want to say the PS5 Pro as well. For a while, you could only pre-order exclusively through I think it's called PlayStation or Sony Direct.
PlayStation Direct, yes.
That's it. It's like directly from PlayStation.
Yeah, because they knew people were buying up like hundreds of PS5s and selling them for ludicrous money, so they went, no, we need to stop that.
So
yeah,
Nintendo have got that
they did
on.
that for the Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Because I look at that and it's just crazy.
That's just poured salt in one of my wounds. I had one of the ETBs for Destined Rivals. Sorry, I'm going off on a little tangent here. It was there. I was putting my details in, and then it said no, the website's just gone. So, yeah, I didn't get one. Anyway, back to Switch 2. It's funny how things are these days. Like, as Penny said, there's not a lot of places that do sell consoles. I mean, yeah, there's like in major cities, there still is game here, then not everywhere.
Some department stores, but
yeah. So yeah,
Smith's Toy Store.
yeah, Smiths. That's a good shout right there.
Oh yeah, Smiths. Yeah. But our nearest one to Basildon is Romford, I think. So I'd have to travel, but
Yeah.
but there is one.
Yeah. So basically, it is a case of people having to either order online or go miles and miles out the way to go get their Switch 2. But it's not necessarily all bad. But yeah, it's good that the way the world is at the moment, Nintendo can basically say yes or no to one per person, which I don't know anyone that needs actually 2 consoles because they've only got 1 pair of hands to play at a time. But yeah, it's definitely a case of
they want to get one for the kids or something, I guess. But
yeah,
I mean, it's basically it's either directly from Nintendo or Amazon these days.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Amazon will be stocking up on a lot of them. A lot.
Other video game websites are available. Shop2.net and.
But they will all be stocking up. They will all be getting as many as they can because they know this is going to be a big drop. But I'm sure that's going on behind the scenes at the moment.
So yeah, I think we better wrap this up because it's been just over an hour now. Hopefully the Switch 2 Direct will be everything we hope for and more.
Yeah, maybe we should do a little after the event and go, were we right?
Yeah, well, that is the plan. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, it's part 1. So part 2 will be sort of what we discussed in this podcast. But did we get it right? So keep an ear out for that. So anyway, I've been Andrew from Nintendo Southend, and these two can say their outros.
I'm Penny from Nintendo Basildon, and it's been a pleasure.
I'm Leon from Nintendo Brighton. 3 very quick predictions.
Go.
Nice colour combinations for Joy-Cons and Switch.
Lovely.
More than 2 themes. Come on, Nintendo. We want more than white and black. Give us grey.
Badges.
And 3 Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie remakes. Those 3 probably aren't going to happen, but I can still hope and dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, if you're interested in more Nintendo events across the UK, don't forget to go to www.nintendoplayers.uk. If there isn't a community near you, why not set your own community up? You can find out on the website. Anyway, I've been Andrew, they've been over there, that Leon there, that Penny over there.
I've just been over here.
Yeah. Right, see you all later. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.